Let's start with the most immediate thing. You've recently left Doctor Who.
Well, I was getting very fed up with the way Doctor Who was being run, largely by John Nathan Turner, his attitude and his lack of insight into what makes a television series like Doctor Who work. This had been going on for a couple of years, and after being cancelled and coming back almost in the same manner as we were before, the same sort of pantomime-ish aspects that I so despised about the show. I just think it isn't worth it.
What was the first thing you knew about the cancellation?
John had been told on the Monday that we were being cancelled, and he told me and Angie Smith, the production associate, on the following day. He wanted us to know before it was made public, but as it transpired the whole department knew anyway.
There were no reasons given?
Other than it was thought the show needed resting, rethinking. We were told we were going back to 25 minutes, which was Michael Grade's decision, and that more comedy was wanted. I must admit that I didn't understand Grade's not about comedy. Last season we had 3 very comic stories: Vengeance on Varys, 2 Doctors, Revelation of the Daleks. It was a pity that 2 out of the 3 stories were poorly directed.
There's a certain something, a sparkle, missing from the direction.
Most of the directors on Who haven't got the lightness of touch necessary. And if they've got it, they don't hang around Who for very long, because of the budget restrictions, working atmosphere, quality of the scripts and so on. The show isn't that enticed to a rising director.
What do you mean by working atmosphere?
Well, the constant thing of having to do everything for tuppence. Interference does go on. John can become so unpleasant to someone he's employed, such as his director. The likes of Graham Harper will not come back to Doctor Who if they've got something else to do. People like Peter Grimwade, who I suppose is the only other director of any note who has come out of Who since John has been producer, says he wouldn't work with John Nathan Turner anymore, and I don't think Nathan Turner would employ him.
There was some row, wasn't there?
It was a lunatic situation. Grimwade directed a script I had written called Earthshock. He made the story work well, so John decided he could direct Resurrection of the Daleks, in my opinion the worst Doctor Who story ever written. As an author I'm entitled to say that. Peter had been booked, and then there was a strike. So the story was cancelled. Grimwade said fine, well obviously we can't do anything about that. If I've not got anything to do I'm going to have lunch and go home. So he took me. Remember I was an author as well as the script editor on the show, and his production manager, and 1 or 2 other members on the team. I think there were about 6 of us. We went to the television center for lunch. I mean, so exciting, it's unbelievable, only to find, when we got back, that John Nathan Turner had been shouting and screaming all over the building. How dare they all go off to lunch together and not invite me?
Oh, no.
Pathetic, isn't it? It's mind-numbing. One of the 2 half-decent directors he's had on the show he will not use because of a silly, stupid incident like that. I think he's a very paranoid individual. He probably feels that I've been slagging him off all over the place since I left, which is not true. There were lots of silly events before I did leave. When I left, I was writing the last episode. We had talked about this ending of the season, and he had agreed, in principle, to what was wanted, a hard cliffhanging thing. I was surprised he had agreed, knowing he does go for these pappy pantomime sort of endings. I went ahead and wrote the last episode as I had discussed it with Bob Holmes and as I had with John, but the episode went in and John said yes, that's all fine. What about the end? I don't like the end, we can't go out on that end. He reneged on, but he had agreed. He wanted the walk down, happy pantomime ending. I couldn't believe it. But that's the man. He knows so much. He has the show cancelled and is openly criticized by the controller of BBC One Television.